Hello again. Welcome to another 3D printing update where right now on the T-Board Tornado, I have blue tape. And I found that the glass ceramic bed, this stuff here, while it gives the print a shiny finish on the bottom, it doesn't stick too well. I have a lot of issues leveling the bed. I have to get it just perfectly leveled in order for the print to stick, which is really annoying. And not always practical either. And with changing out filaments all the time, it definitely becomes a big hassle. Because each filament kind of has its own reactions to this. I don't know if I ever showed off my 3D printed ocarina. I think maybe in my first update I did. This pangolin, save the pangolins, hashtag save the pangolins, has been going for 9.5 hours and it's probably going to go for at least another 6. It looks like it's mostly done, but there's actually quite a bit of back material left. Just like my Flexi Rexy, this is built of several interlinking parts. Let me get some more light on here. Which should hopefully come apart when the print is done and flex independently. But I'm a little worried that this wood filament that I'm using is sticking together, or it's too close together, or something. The tolerances maybe are not so good like the Flexi Rexy. So we'll have to see. I already did print all the little feet for this guy, and the front feet actually do have the flippy mechanism, as you can see here. And this actually works just fine. It's not quite loose, it's not quite tight. You can see it does kind of flop back on its own, depending on gravity. But yeah, these just clip into the underside. You can't see the clip parts right now because it's under the belly. But yeah, just have the 4 legs. I printed these first just to make sure that my wood print settings were all good. And I mean, aside from maybe the top where you can see the layers, looking from the side of the print, in a certain light, for example, in this light you can see the layer lines, but with light more directly on it, you almost can't see the layer lines at all. So it's pretty cool. So that's what the T-Board Tornado's been up to. And I don't think I've shown you this. I think this might have been printing on my last update. This is a Dragon Priest mask from Skyrim. The Elder Scrolls Skyrim. This inside is the black PLA it was originally printed in, and it's been primed and sanded. Well, it's been sanded. Let me correct myself here. The black PLA was lined with Varathane, which is a polyurethane coating. And once it was lined with this stuff, basically a first coat of this, it was then sanded and then primed. So this is it after just being finished primed. And if you look for some of the smoother parts, like for example this forehead crest, it almost imperceivable layer lines, which is awesome. But then some other places where I guess the printing was having some issues, you can see some nasty layer lines. So, and in fact you can even see some of the echo here in the edges. So it's a bit unfortunate, but this is going to go through a whole bunch of sanding and priming and sanding and priming and all that until it's almost perfectly smooth. I also have this spackling. I've been told that drywall spackling is good to cover, fill in some of these holes and stuff. I would say the mouth, this printed upside down on the T-Board Tornado like this. So most of the features, even like the chin, for example, didn't need any support. Just the mouth, inside of the mouth, for example, and you can tell, yeah, that didn't print so nicely. And then the top of the head also has support, all supporting it. And yeah, again, it just doesn't look like it prints so nicely. In fact, it doesn't even look quite round, if you can see this. It looks somewhat distorted. If you look here, there's a nice curve to it, but right above it, it's not so nice. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there. You'll notice a lack of 3D printed parts on the floor. There are some still there, but most of them have ended up in the actual sword. So it's not glued or anything yet, but this is the Monster Hunter. Let's see if I can bring it out here without disassembling it. This is the Monster Hunter sword. I'm seated and my hand is almost level with this. It's a bit taller than my shoulder, so it's about even with my eye level, which is where I'm holding the phone right now. And there are still, so this is made up of, actually they're all put together, but there's 3 pieces in here. I don't know if you can see. So yeah, you can see the crease here, and there's another crease up here. So this is currently 3 pieces. The black, the black portion is supposed to be made of 5 pieces. So this, I'm leaning against the wall here. So this will be two more sections. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then this piece, this white and blue piece that goes on the very top. So it's going to be pretty big. It's about 5 feet long or so. And the handle is a little bit easier to demonstrate because that's not actually glued together. So you can see it's just all these different sections. So yeah, just printed these all out individually, and there's a piece in between them, which is basically just this piece in between all the pieces to kind of hold them together. These pieces up top have little pieces that go in these slots that kind of lock the blade piece together a little bit better. But overall, yeah, pretty happy with that. Other than that, I have printed a dice tower here for a player for their request. So it actually just comes apart like this. This piece is a little bit tighter, so it's not going to come apart, but this is also a separate piece from the tray. So it's pretty simple. It's just a basic kind of dice flopper, and you can see in there it just has like a ramp. So basically, dice will go in and bounce off this and come out. And so this piece is just another piece on top to give it more things to bounce off of. And then this piece is simply just decorative topper. But you can see that the way it's built, this has kind of an inner ring and this has the outer ring, and they just slide on top of each other and they can freely rotate, kind of shimmy around a little bit, but I don't know if he wants to glue it or not. It's up to him. But you can actually just print as many of these middle pieces as you want, and just, you know, stack them on each other, which is kind of a cool idea because you can make it as tall as you want as well. So before I move on to what I've done recently in terms of designing, here is some models. I think this model turned out a little bit nicer. This is Ras Nasai, as I pronounce it. Other people might have different pronunciations. He is a Yuan-ti Malison, I believe, which is basically human torso, arms and head, and a snake lower half. So he's actually a really cool print. The underneath needed a lot of supports, but actually I think it turned out pretty good. You can kind of tell, you know, he's a little bit scaly. I think the main body scales turned out amazing, and the torso and the arms and that stuff just have such fine detail that it was just barely coming out on my printer, unfortunately. The face model looks a little bit corrupted when I was prepping the model to be 3D printed, so it didn't look like it would come out properly, but it came out okay. He's supposed to have like a blindfold bandage on, and yeah, you can't make that out at all, really. You'd have to paint that kind of detail on. His hand, it might be hard to see this, but his hand is actually open, the one that's upwards, and it's supposed to hold a sword, which I 3D printed as well, and it just turned 2D, basically. It didn't turn out at all. And unfortunately, that just seems to be the way it's going for me with very fine details. This is Asarak the Lich. And as you can see, he has a staff that currently only has the top half to, because these arm pieces, this, I don't know what you would call them, wizard cloak or whatever, they needed support material, and that support material kind of came up from the base all the way up to this, and then also to the hand. And same with this one, it needed support material on the cloak bit, the cuff, I don't know, and the hand. And on the his left hand, it actually turned out okay. His fingers, I think, are a little bit too short. But again, this is another model where it just had such fine detail that printing on a 3D printer just does not show up almost at all. So that was a bit unfortunate. But the staff handle, it unfortunately was also too brittle to survive, and I couldn't even remove it from the support material to try and glue it back on and save it. And unfortunately, his arm also snapped. Where you can see the spot I glued it, I think, kind of glistening in the light there. So, unfortunately, Spindly models, like, his head actually turned out pretty good. He's got this really complicated mask. It's got, like, 2 horns on the top and, like, tusks almost. But I can't make out the fact that he's, like, an undead. It's... Actually, you can kind of just barely see that he's got, like, an eye socket and a... Is he supposed to have a nose? I can't actually tell if he's supposed to have a nose or not. And it looks like there actually might still be some stringing in there in his face. But the cloak and you know, his body turned out pretty good, I would say. So that's pretty great. Now, why did I print these 2 figures? Well, you know, Acererak's the big bad of Tomb of Annihilation, and Resin Sai is the bad of kind of the halfway point of the module. And I want to be able to use these figures. One game is in the final stages of the tomb, and the other game is just, well, a little bit more than starting off, but eventually they're going to be facing this guy, so I thought I'd just print him out while I have the time and see what he looks like and whatever. But here's actually kind of the meat of one of the reasons I wanted to make this update today, aside from the fact I haven't done one in a while. You can also see I have an Aboleth 3.5 edition printing, almost done actually. So it might be done by the time I'm done rambling here, which would be nice. This is something I made. I actually designed in Fusion 360 and printed out in 3 different pieces that make this up. They're all unique pieces, unfortunately. So what we have is a base, just a base to hold the gears together, these gear bits. And they're spaced just far enough where they mesh, the gears mesh together, as you can see, but they are not so far apart where they are not touching. Unfortunately, it looks like these 2 gears are just too close together because the base is forcing them apart in this axis. It's kind of hard to see. Yeah, you can tell. See that they're being, they should be like this, should be straight on, but they're being forced apart, and I think it's just because these 2 gears are too close together. So what is this? So these are 3 gears, as it looks like, and they are touching, they are connected, and they do actually function. And the pentagons on the inside are the rooms in the dungeon. So there are 3 rooms, and each of the rooms... Oh, that's the Ender 3 finishing, so we'll take a look at that in a minute. Each of the rooms has... they're all pentagon shaped, but they each have unique entrances. 2 for each room, and they're all in different locations. So in this, they're spaced apart from each other in this configuration. This one, if I flip it, it's spaced from each other in this configuration, and then this one is spaced in this configuration. So these ones are actually closer than the other 2, and this one's basically a mirror of this one, or vice versa. But they're all kind of different, so they all need to be printed out uniquely or designed uniquely. And I did have to mess with these sort of hallway bits because they are not quite straight. In fact, you can still kind of see they don't quite line up perfectly. But some couple moments with a gripper, whatever this is called, pliers, will kind of make them what you want. And yeah, so without further ado, I don't know if I can do this one-handed, but the idea is that it should be able to rotate, yeah, on the stand here. So without having to take them off and rearrange them, or worry that they're not in the accurate configuration, you can just, I'm gonna have to do this in a funny way. You should just be able to rotate them. If I make sure I do this correctly, so they both have to rotate in the same direction. Yeah. So yeah, so they rotate all together. As you can see, I'm not touching the middle gear, but because I'm rotating the other two gears, then they rotate. And I think the tolerances were a little too tight. But as you can see, it goes from, for example, this configuration, where these two... So you can see in this configuration, these two rooms are connected and this room is isolated. And then if I rotate it like that, which I should have rotated the other way, but anyways, now these two rooms are connected and this room is isolated by itself. And that's, there's actually 5 configurations in the tomb, but really I only see the use of these 2 configurations. But basically, it doesn't matter what the configurations are because they're based on gear systems. They can go anywhere. So they could be like this. It just means that each of the rooms are cut off from each other. And there could be different reasons for that you would want to do that. But mainly those are the 2 configurations. With these 2 rooms being linked, and then with these 2 rooms being linked. And the other configurations, I guess you could do it to open up some other spaces or some other pathways, but spoiler alert, basically there's no real use for the other ones. Just these pathways just go off into nothing. There's no wall there. It's just a lake. So unless you want to go into the lake, I guess that would be the only other reason to have one of these other configurations that don't line up with each other. Yeah, but I basically, like I said, I designed all these parts in Fusion 360. I stole this gear just from another model, which I've linked on the Thingiverse page for this model. So if you're looking for the Gears of Hate, which is level 5 of the Tomb of Annihilation, I didn't find this model anywhere. I couldn't find a model of these. I found pictures, of course, but nobody had a working model of this, so I decided to make it. And I think this model could be improved, so, you know, maybe making the tolerances a bit more forgiving and making them line up a little bit better without having to fuddle with pliers and all that. So, and then of course I also made the base plate, and you can't see it, but each of these gears has a hole in it, and this base plate has 3 pieces that go into those holes and keep them. And in fact, I can't even really remove them from the base plate. I can sort of flex the base plate because it's not that many layers of plastic, but maybe you can just barely see it. Yeah, you can just barely see it there. But basically, the tolerance is on my machine, not on the design. I gave the design quite a bit of tolerance. So maybe for next time I just need to give it more tolerance in my designs. But, you know, for example, I could make these gears, because right now these gears are a bit, like, they dig into your skin when you're turning them, so having fatter gears might solve that issue. Like, the teeth should be thicker and stuff, less teeth. That could help. Almost like a pinwheel design or something. But yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of improvements I can make. One of the things that I kind of didn't do intentionally, but just happened to work out, is that these hallways are just wide enough for, or these rooms are just wide enough for a 1-inch mini to kind of sit in. So if the party's split up and there's a player in this room and then another player in this room, you know, you could put their minis in the model, like sitting in the model like this. Obviously, you can't do it with the, this big guy, but and you could even scale these up and print them massively. Probably want to maybe, if you're gonna print them, scale them up. I would suggest scale them in the X and Y and shrink the Z to make them like the same or even smaller height, and then that way they're not so tall and they'll take less material, but you'll still get the same effect theoretically. Whoops. When I was kind of actually planning on doing that with these models was to shrink the Z to get that effect, but I did want to see what the actual model in full scale would look like, and this is it. So it's pretty cool. I'm pretty happy with that. It's my first real design aside from my Maker coin. So this is my first real Fusion 360 design. I had a couple different ones. This is the one I like the best, and now this is my next real design. So while I'm here, I feel I don't know if I have enough clearance. I can try this. I don't know how it'll handle the vibrations, but let's take this guy off. And in fact, with such a print, there's a lot of stringing on this, weirdly. What's probably best is to take all these little clips off of the bed. And this version of the Ender 3 I have has the removable bed. Unfortunately not magnetic, but it is removable. So this guy's stuck on there pretty good. But I can, I don't know how I'm going to show this. Let's move this away. But I can flex this. You can hear it. It's kind of popping off. And then we can just take our knife and just, boom, done. There we go. So some very thin bits on this model, like these fins, and there's supposed to be other parts to the model as well. I don't know how good you can see this. But I like this sculpt. It's pretty good. I did a raft. Whoa, shit. I scared myself because I touched the fan. Whoops. I did a raft here, as you can see, because basically the entire, kind of like Raznasai, but to the extreme, the entire model is supported with support material because of its round body. So I needed the raft to hold on all this support material, because I tried to do just the support material directly on the bed, and basically just didn't work. So I'm going to get to work slowly and carefully removing all this support material from the model, so you can kind of see it has the three eyes. And what these looks like jet turbines to me, which is kind of funny but kind of cool. And there was a lot of errors in the model as well. I had issues where it was trying to print like a completely missing layer, for example. But even some of the detail, like this fishy ribbing, ooh, that's very smooth actually. I think this guy was at like 0.2 layer height as well, so surprising. It looks pretty good in this. This is CC Tree Black PLA. Whereas these guys were actually, I think Raznasai was one of these prints. During one of these prints, I ran out of filament, which was the eNotepad PLA. I had to switch it for the CC Tree PLA. Both were black though, so it didn't really matter. I actually might have been in the middle of my Gears of Hate, and to be honest, maybe you can notice it. I don't even know if that's when it swapped. right, right where that line starts to shift. I don't think so. I think that's just because the floor of the model is offset from the rest of it, so I'm not really sure. It's possible. I don't know. But anyways, both good filaments, I guess. I don't know which one I'd buy again. Probably just whichever's cheaper. Because I think they did pretty good. And I definitely need more filament. As you can see, I'm running out again. So I've been through quite a few rolls. The most filament I have right now is this green filament, aside from the ones I haven't opened yet, which is TPU, PETG, and more green filaments. So I guess I still have some PLA for printing my weapon pieces, and those pieces take like 250 to 300 grams each. Excuse me. So it's not a small amount. So printing this whole weapon is gonna probably be, I would say, easily 4 rolls of filament, probably even more, because look how massive that sword blade and axe blade is. So okay, I will leave that for today's 3D printing update, and I'll just say happy printing, I think, is the best. I gotta come up with a saying, like happy printing, print safe, have fun printing, something like that. That's it. See ya.